Hi and welcome. I'm Colleen and I'll be guiding you today through a relax and restore yoga practice. This practice is a blend of yin and restorative postures. And for your practice today, you'll want to have a bolster, a couple blocks, a strap, and a couple pillows as well. To begin, we'll start off in a reclining heart opening, reclining butterfly. So for this posture, I like a little bit of an incline, if you will. My bolster is a little bit on the thin side, so I usually elevate it with the use of the blocks. If you have one of those really large bolsters, then you might not need to do this extra step with the blocks. And then to find your way in, come to a seated position with your props extended behind you. Carefully lower yourself all the way onto your props. Feel free to make any little adjustments. And if you're starting to notice a pinchiness to the low back, then my suggestion would be to inch your hips a little further forward or to lower your props a little closer to the mat. Then from there, you have several options with the legs. So if you're looking for a little added stability into this shape, you could start with the knees bent and the feet flat onto the floor. Another option would be to take the soles of the feet together and allow the knees to fan out to the side. Now for this variation, I recommend sliding your pillows in between the outer leg and the floor, just filling in the gap with props so that the legs have something to gently rest into. Another option, if you want to take the legs right out of the equation, would be to stretch the legs long for a little release through the front of the legs, through the front of the hips. This can feel lovely as well. You can play around with each of those three variations, see what you prefer. And then tuck your shoulder blades a little ways behind the back body and down so that they're cradling the base of the heart. Then play around with the placement of the hands. They can come a little wider, a little closer to the hips if you wish. And then blink the eyes softly closed. Let the lids get heavier and heavier. And begin to direct your mind's attention into the rhythm and the cadence of the breath. In other words, as you breathe here, curiously follow the inhale to the very, very top. Watch the inhale naturally spill over to the exhale, and in turn, watch it all the way to the very bottom. Continue to breathe just like this, and notice all of the spaces in between. Observing how the body accommodates the breath in and out. All that is expanding with each deep inhale. All that is releasing with each exhale. And as you continue to breathe here, take note of how you feel physically. Is there anything that needs care and tending to today? And what of the mind? Is it running wild with thought, or maybe it's quiet and contemplative? What is present of the heart? Is there a corresponding emotion to the thoughts? And as you gather this information, create an intention for yourself. Knowing what you know, what is it that you most wish to nourish within your being, to cultivate in this time in your practice? Let this serve as your intention, the foundation for every posture here this evening. And then with a little imagination, envision your intention being placed into the vessel of the breath, so that every breath continuously bathes you with all that you're calling in, all that you're cultivating and nourishing within. Keep breathing here. And as you breathe, you might notice how there's a wave-like quality to the breath. As you inhale, watch the belly rise. As you deepen in, feel the ribs expand. And right there at the top of the breath, feel the breath flood into the center of the heart. Watch the wave of breath retreat out of the heart center, out of the ribs, out of the belly. Move another wave of breath in. Feel the wave of breath retreat out. Breathing belly, ribs, and heart. Exhaling heart, ribs, and belly. Keep breathing and let every breath serve as a little whisper reminding you of your intention. We'll be here for a couple more minutes, just resting, breathing. Leave all responsibility of time to me. Just rest and breathe. And for these last few breaths here, you might explore taking the arms a little wider or even overhead. And as you expand the body, perhaps expand the breath. Take one last breath in. Savor it sweetly, savor it completely. And now feel the breath move on out. Return the hands to the sides. And then we'll all meet up, still reclining, but here with the knees bent, feet flat onto the floor. You can toe heel the feet a little wider so that the knees knock in. This will help to balance the hips, especially if the knees were drawn out wide. The subtle internal rotation can create a gentle release to the outer hip. A little bit of a shorter hold here, just a few more breaths. And then moving at a glacial pace, begin to transition onto your right or left side. Settle a couple moments there in the fetal position. And then with the strength of your hands, begin to press your way forward and up, coming onto all fours. You can use your props in a similar fashion, or if you're like me, I like the props flush for this next pose. So you can lift the blocks so that they're even and then place the bolster right on top. And then bring the big toes to touch, draw your knees out to the side. And if you're feeling a little bit of feedback from the floor, if you need a little extra cushion, you can always tuck it right underneath the knees. If there's a tug to the front of the knees, you can also take a cushion, a pillow, and tuck it right to the back of the knees. And this will help to take the bend out of the knees or decrease the flexion. And takes a little pressure off the patellar tendon or the front of the knees. And then from there, drape your torso over the bolster and let your entire torso, your head and neck be fully held. You can experiment with taking the arms a little further forward, stretching them back, turning either cheek or ear to the bolster, and you can always adjust it at any point in time. And then once again, blink your eyes closed. Begin to redirect your awareness inward once again. Here you might experience a similar wave-like quality to the breath. As you inhale, you might feel the sacrum, the low back, expand ever so slightly. As you deepen in, the back ribs, the side ribs start to inflate. And right there at the top of the breath, the shoulder blades widening, almost lifting off like little wings about to take off in flight. And as you exhale, can you soften into gravity's reach? Let yourself melt a little bit. No need to consciously control the breath in any way. Just experience it fully in the body. Almost like a massage, working its way from the inside to the outside till you feel the very edges of your skin expand. And this posture has many benefits. Helps to lengthen out the entire dorsal spine or the entire back body. It's great to relieve pressure from particularly the sacral lumbar junction of the spine or the low back. And so if your low back is feeling tender at any point in time, this can be a really great posture to take some pressure off, to decompress. Also, with the toes pointed back, it helps to release the front of the shins. So if you're ever working with any shin splints, this is a great posture to visit. And I'm always reminded the shape of the child or child's pose is really a metaphor, if you will, of cocooning inward, tucking yourself into your own being, and to perhaps reconnect with the relationship you have with yourself and your own inner child. It's natural for the dialogue of the mind to start to bubble up. This is an opportunity for you to send kind thoughts to yourself, to another, or even the child within. Again, we'll be here for a couple more minutes, so gift yourself entirely this opportunity to be off the hook. Once again, rest and breathe and feel. Feel this next breath move in and watch it all the way out. Then from there, begin to rise all the way back up. You might decide to press back into a down dog or to extend one leg back and then the next. Just stretch out the back of the legs. You can always move through a cat-cow, sway out the hips, or even jump roll the spine, just to wash any after image of the pose away. And then from there, you can set your bolster off to the side. Place your blocks to the front corners of your mat. I personally like the highest setting, but I've also got these little T-Rex arms as well. So you can play around here. And then place your right foot in between your hands so that the knee is on top of the ankle or slightly behind the ankle, avoiding it coming much further past. Then from there, slide the left leg as far back as it will reach. Adjust your right hip gently back so that your left hip can begin to soften its way forward. If your low back is starting to sag or compensate or arc, then I encourage you to draw the low belly slightly in, directing your tailbone towards the earth so that there's a slight pelvic tilt here. This will help to isolate the release through the front of the left hip so that you're not recruiting movement from the low back and spine. And then steady the gaze or blink the eyes closed once again. Begin to breathe in and breathe out again. Noticing the subtle pause at the top and bottom of the breath, as well as all of the spaces in between. You might even envision your breath flooding to the lower left quadrant of your abdomen. And this posture helps to release the front of your left hip, the hip flexor group. And when this musculature becomes tight or the connective tissue becomes tight, it can distort the alignment of the pelvis and create a lot of pressure on the low back and spine. So while we're working to balance at the hip, we're freeing up the spine. Just a few more breaths here. See what else you might be able to soften. And where there's an invitation for release. Take one more inhale and one more exhale. Flutter the eyes open, taking on light. Then place both blocks to the inside of the right foot. Then a little quarter turn, so you can swing your left leg a little to the right side and then turn your torso a little ways to the right. Now, as you turn to the left, notice if the right knee has come with you. If so, adjust it so that it's still tracking in the same direction as your right middle toe. For me, right away, this creates sensation, fair amount actually, to the right inner groin. So I might decide to stay upright the entire time or until sensation dissipates. If, however, you're looking for a little more sensation, you could lower your forearms partway to the floor onto the block or all the way down. You can kind of play around. And you can explore these different iterations throughout the time here in the pose. Notice if there's any tension creeping up into the shoulders, and see where you might be able to soften or explore a little release. Once again, blink the eyes closed if you haven't already, and dive your attention back into the breath. In fact, let this be your ritual for practice in every pose. Once you fine-tune it, move your awareness inward. Feel the experience of the breath, the body. Notice the mind. And explore all the ways in which you can soften, what you can let go of. Moving slowly, begin to rise all the way back up. You can swing your back leg straight and then bring your hands to frame your right foot. Slowly toe crawl the right foot across the mat in front of your left hip, and then slide your left leg straight back. From there, use your props to support you. So I love to place blocks right in front, bolster on top. And then for the space in between your right hip and the floor, take your pillow or pillows or a block or your bolster, any one of your props, and tuck it right underneath the hip so that your hip has something to rest into. When you think about it, at 100% of your range of motion, that's your max range. And at 101, that's injury. And so the body tends to protect you from this injury by adding more tension once you get really close to that edge. And so instead, by going in about 70 to 80% of the range, having a little bit of a cushion underneath so your body can feel that there's a surface it can let go of and into, then the body is more apt to relax and release, and it's that release response that creates the depth of the stretch. And so it's been my experience personally that the more I use the props, the deeper I tend to go. From there, begin to fold forward into support your head, and could come all the way onto your bolster. You could support yourself part way onto your forearms and let your head rest into your hands. And then begin to once again create the same ritual of moving your awareness inward. Feeling the breath in the body. Feeling the body expand to accommodate the breath in. Feel it shrink and wrap back in to empty the breath out. And we're right around that halfway point. And so check in with the sensation of your body. If it feels really intense and unsustainable to be here for another 2 to 3 minutes, then my suggestion would be to think of rewinding the posture to where the sensation is slightly alleviated. You might then reach for a second pillow or block and place it to the outer hip just to keep you from moving any further into this shape, just to maintain the shape you're in that is sustainable. Alternatively, if you're looking for more sensation, you might inch some of the props away or explore bringing your right shin further forward, perhaps parallel to the front edge of the mat. Check back in with the breath as well, and if it's shallowed or become jagged in any way, just see if you can even it out. Not that there's need to direct it or control it, but just simply notice it. Last couple breaths here. Begin to rise back up onto the hands. Sit up tall. Take a moment and pause there for at least one cycle of breath. Inch your back leg forward a couple of times till you feel a little stability underneath the hip. And then unravel the right leg, extend it straight back. You could even curl toes under, press through the right heel. If you're craving a down dog, feel free to move into that shape. Otherwise, you could circle the hips and again wash any after image away. And then when you're ready, take your bolster, set it off to the side momentarily. Place your blocks to the front of your mat. And then step your left foot in between the hands. Slide and glide your right leg as far back as it will reach. Gently draw your left hip back to encourage the right hip to release its way forward. Take inventory of the low back. Again, you might cinch the low belly in for a little added support to the spine as you passively allow the right hip to soften its way forward. Check back in with a breath. You might even count the length of the inhale and exhale and see if there's anything you can even out. Encourage the jaw to remain soft, the shoulders softer. Just a couple more breaths here. And then from there, ease off the lunge, place the blocks to the inside of the left foot. And I'll even demonstrate this a little bit on an angle here so you can see a different view. Then swing your right foot towards the left side of the room and add a little quarter turn so you'll adjust your torso sideways. Now if the left knee starts to fall inward, adjust it so that it's still tracking in the same direction as your left middle toes. And then again, you can choose to stay upright, lower part way, or all the way to the earth. Tendency here is for the shoulders to shrug, to grip, or wrap around the ears. What would it be like for you to draw them back and let the chest melt towards the earth? Continue to breathe here for a couple more minutes. If the mind has begun to wander, just know that that's a natural thing for the mind to do, to think, to plan, to try to figure out life. But every time you notice yourself thinking, there's an opportunity to hook onto the thought or to let it dissipate with the same ease in which it arrived. Almost setting the thoughts adrift, almost like a little boat off to sea. The boat might return back again with the tide, but each time you can set it adrift once again, watching it further dissipate into the horizon, taking all of your thoughts and the busyness of the mind along with it. Last couple breaths here. Now rise all the way back up. You can straighten your back leg to crawl the left foot all the way across in front of the right hip. Slide the right leg back and set yourself up for support. So a bolster out in front of you. Little added cushion to the outer left hip. Filling in the space. There's still the ability of the body to sink in. There's a little give there, but there's also support so the body doesn't need to defend. Eventually lowering your upper body onto your props, either cheek or ear to the bolster, or again, you could meet yourself halfway, forearms to your props, head into your hands. Ensure that there's no tugging, no pulling to the knee. And again, if there is, you can always lift up or add a little extra cushion to the outer hip. You're a little over halfway there. And so again, notice how the body feels, always giving yourself permission to take care. Follow this next breath in. And then move the breath out. From there, begin to rise all the way back up. Take a moment to pause, breathe here for one round of breath. And then from there, lean all the way over to the left. So you can remove your cushion, your block, your pillow. Lean all the way over to the left. And then extend the back leg forward. Carefully unravel the left leg as well. And so you'll take the legs wide into about a 90-degree angle, give or take. In fact, I'll just adjust my props this way so you can get a full angle. And then take a note here, and if you find that when you come to seated that your shoulders are behind the hips or almost like you're going to fall out the back door, my recommendation then would be to sit upright onto a little cushion or your bolster, almost like you're about to fall off the cushion itself. And so what this does is it tilts the pelvic bowl forward. It takes some of the pressure off of the low back, and it helps to isolate it into the targeted regions of the inner groin, the hamstrings. And then from there, you can have your props out in front of you once again. And we'll use a little bit of engagement to make our way into the pose. So I personally like to flip the toes up, have a little engagement of the quads, lift up tall, and then with the legs as they are, passively let your upper body begin to hinge forward out of the hips, and then notice where the body naturally yields. It might be an inch or two, and then pause there and relax the leg. See how that is. If there's a tug to the back of the knee, you could even take a little hand towel, roll it up and place it to the back of the knee. And if you don't have one in reach, you can also slide your hands under as well as a quick fix. And then for me, maybe you as well, the bolster and blocks are kind of far away. What I like to do from there is to actually flip the bolster around, wrap my arms around it like a big old teddy bear, and then lean into it for support. If you feel any tugging to the sacral area, any tugging to the low back right along the spine, it's okay to some degree if it's coming into the musculature, but if you're starting to feel it a lot along that SI joint or starting to feel it pull right in the lumbar, then I would encourage you to rewind the pose and just rest here patiently. Once you feel the legs completely relax and the sensation dissipate, you can always inch your way in a little further. Notice how you feel. Check in if the sensation has dissipated, and if so, see that as an invitation to explore a little more range. So you might set the bolster a little further forward. Think of tilting the pubic bone towards the earth, and then letting the upper body just simply melt its way forward. I usually move in with a flat back, just mainly because I've had some disc issues, so it's a way to protect the low back and the discs themselves. And then once I get in, I can always allow a soft rounding of the upper back and spine. Again, I can use my props here. I might play with them in a different way, would be to stack them and let the forehead rest on into support. Just a few more rounds of breath here. Slowly begin to rise all the way back up. You can stay seated as you are. Then move it into a little bit of a twist. So you'll start to turn your torso slightly to the left side. And then keeping the torso rotated slightly to the left, simply slide your right arm down the length of the right leg. Place your elbow above or below the knee and then bend the elbow and let your head rest into your right hand. Couple options here. You could extend the left bicep alongside the cheek and ear, the arm straight. You might love the sensation of wrapping the left arm behind you. Or my favorite is extend the arm alongside the cheek and ear, but then to create a more passive, relaxing experience, just bend the elbow. Let the upper arm rest alongside the cheek and ear, and then your left hand can even cup the base of the head and neck for a little added support. Chances are your left hip has started to lift up ever so slightly. And so as much as you can, energetically aim it back towards the earth. And then breathe deeply, exploring the left side waist expanding and wrapping back in. If the top arm is still extended overhead, bring it to the left leg. Then with the assist of your right hand, start to tilt the head back up and rise tall through the spine. Take a moment here and notice how you feel left side compared to the right. And then evening things out, add a little twist. So you're going to turn and rotate slightly to the right. Keep the torso rotated to the right, then release the left arm down the length of the leg. Again, here you can position the elbow above or below the knee. Then bend the elbow and let your head rest comfortably into your left hand. Explore your options with your right arm, bicep alongside the cheek and ear, wrap it behind, or let your head rest into the cradle of your right hand. Add a little more heaviness, a little more weight into your right hip. Breathe deeply till you notice a space between the right ribs. Again, begin to release the right arm, bring it to the right thigh. And then with the assist of your left fingertips, adjust the head back upright and then sit up tall once again through the spine. And then begin to revisit the same forward fold. Let's see if it's changed in any way. Lift up tall. Tilt the pubic bone forward. Reach your sternum across the length of the room. Pause where the body naturally yields. And then soften in. A little bit of a shorter hold. Just 4 or 5 more breaths here. And now rise all the way tall once again. Slip your hands just beneath the base of the knees. Lean back and bring your feet to the floor. Set your bolster, your blocks out of the way. And then a little reset of the hips, just a gentle windshield wipering of the legs. You can even sneak in a little added twist here. Shifting the legs over to the opposite side, rotating through the spine. And coming all the way back through to neutral. From there, come to a comfortable seat. Once again, you could come to cross-legged, you could come to kneeling, whatever feels most supportive in your body. Do use props so that you feel like you can sustain a seated pose. I really like kneeling for this one, and then a little cushion underneath my seat. And then settling in, grow tall through the spine. Lift up and out of the crown, and then take the right ear up and over to the right side. Allow the shoulders to get heavier now. If you want a little added sensation, you can even bring your right hand to the side of the head and traction it slightly up and over to the side. Whichever variation you're in, spin your left hand forward, palm forward, then reach the hand slightly back and then towards the bottom corners of the room, almost like you could wedge it into the space between the floor and the wall. And then relax everything here. Settle back into the breath. Feel the weight of the shoulders, the weight of the head, and the depth of the breath. Keep the head in the same position, but flip your left hand towards the back of the space, and you can even tuck the hand behind the low back if that feels comfortable for you, or it can even come to the hip, just depending on how that feels through the front of the shoulder. And then allow the head to begin to gently fall forward towards the right underarm or towards the right diagonal. Chances are you'll feel sensation start to move not only into the side of the neck, but now moving into the back of the shoulder. Breathe in so that you feel not only the chest expand at the top of the breath, but also the left shoulder blade, the left wing. Keep the left arm as it is. Take your right hand just below your left collarbone and press slightly into the flesh and drag it slightly down. This will create a little bit of an anchor. Then telescoping up and out of the crown, extend up and then tilt the head slightly back. And you'll likely feel some sensations start to move through the front of the neck into the collarbone. You might even feel this a little ways into the jaw. And then again, without any effort, just be here, breathe here. In fact, if you wish to deepen into the pose, deepen into the breath. Two more breaths here. Eventually release both hands and allow the head to gently fall forward. Chin draws towards the chest. And then lift up and out of the spine and return the head back to neutral. Notice how you feel through the entire right side compared to the left. And then evening everything out, grow tall, reach up and out of the crown, and then gently take the left ear towards the left shoulder. Let both shoulders get heavy once again. And let the head get heavier still. Option to add on, you could take your left hand to the side of the head and neck, drawing it slightly over. And then either variation, spin the right palm forward, reach it slightly back, and then reach your fingers to the bottom right corners of the room. Check back in with the breath. And now flip the right palm to the back of the space, tuck the hand behind the low back, or bring it to the hip. Then moving tenderly, start to draw the head diagonally forward towards the left underarm. Chances are you'll feel now sensation move not only into the side of the neck, but also into the back of the shoulder and neck. Keep the right hand now as it is. Take your left hand, place it just below your right collarbone. Press into the flesh and drag it slightly down. Then extending up and out of the crown, start to lift the head and tilt it slightly up and back to the left side. Till you feel a little sensation move through the front of the neck, perhaps into the chest, the collarbone. And again, you might even notice this in the jaw. Breathe in until you feel your chest move a little bit into your hand. And breathe out till you feel your hand move a little closer into your chest. And now begin to release both hands. With care and attention, let the head gently draw its way forward, evening out. Return the head back upright. And you can even roll out the shoulders a couple times. Turn the head one time to the right and one time to the left. And bring your head back to center now, and then shift your way forward. You can move your blocks, your props out from underneath, and place your blocks towards the front of your mat, and have a pillow there as well. And if you don't have a pillow handy, you can always let your head rest into the mat or into a blanket roll. And then from there, place your bolster right across the center of your mat. And this is where the front of your hips will go. Then lower all the way down, placing the hips over the bolster. Extend the legs back, shake out the hips a couple times just to allow the spine a moment to arrive. Then take your blocks, tuck them right underneath the shoulders so that the head of the shoulder is fully resting onto the block. And you can play around with the different height settings, see which feels best in your body. For me, I love this middle setting. And then let your head rest forward onto the pillow in front of you, or you could even fold in the edge of your mat. You can play around with a different placement of the hands. They can be forward, to the side. My favorite is to stretch them back. Blink the eyes closed. In fact, even if they're open, there's nothing to see. Follow the exhale all the way to the very bottom and let your heart melt into support beneath you. At the same time, you might notice the shoulders, the shoulder blades, the head of the shoulders start to move back, almost like the shoulder blades could one day touch. Begin to walk the hands back in. And take your time to press back into a support or into child's pose just for a moment here to release, reset the low back and spine. And then from there, take your blocks and your bolster, setting the bolster right on top of the blocks. And then come over to your right hip You could leave the legs staggered in this way. You might like to have a cushion to place in between the legs just for a little added support to the low back and sacrum. We're moving now into a prone twist. So if there's a different twist you know and love, feel free to take it. For me, this is one of my absolute favorites. Initially lengthen out of the spine, draw the low belly in. Begin to rotate so that your right ribs are drawing back and your left ribs are rolling forward. Then gently place your torso down onto your bolster. And you might have the entire belly, chest, all the way onto the bolster. You might be a little bit positioned off to the side. You can always adjust as the body lets go and releases. And you can turn your head right or left, whatever feels best in your neck. Observe the breath moving across the left side waist here. And how every exhale rotates you a little deeper into the shape. A little bit of a shorter hold, just one more breath here. And then using the strength of your arms to lift your way back up and to transition onto the opposite side. So here it would be the left hip. Pillow between the legs if you wish. Tall through the spine, rotating the left hip back, right ribs forward, and then gently folding in. Feeling as the breath now moves into your right ribs. And again, how each and every exhale deepens you slightly further into the pose. Just a couple more breaths here. Last full inhale, let it flood into your right side waist, your right ribs. Soften completely upon the exhale. And then again, with the strength of your arms, rise all the way back up onto all fours. Again, you could jump rope the spine, sway out through the hips, and integrate any organic movement here at this time. And then setting up for our final Shavasana, place your blocks so that they're about hip width apart, give or take. You can play around with the height. And then place your bolster right on top. Sit your hips flush to the bolster and then swing your legs around so that the back of the knees are fully supported onto your bolster. Then begin to lower yourself all the way onto the floor. You can give a little hip adjustment, draw the hips under, walk the shoulders under, hands wide. Feel free to take up space, claim your space. If you need any extra coverings, an eye pillow, a blanket, or even a little roll to the back of the neck, just to encourage the muscles of the neck to fully release. And then let the body get ever so heavy. Let go as though you were falling through water. Feeling the weight of the body sink in until it finally feels weightless. Let go of the thoughts, the mind, all the hats you wear, roles you play, and all the responsibilities of life. Again, gift yourself this opportunity, permission to be fully off the hook. Letting go of all definition of body or mind. And breathing into the essence that is you. Perfect, whole, and complete, exactly as you are now. Shivaya Gurave Satchidananda Murtaye Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Satchidananda Murtaye Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Begin to deepen back into the breath. And bring a little movement into the fingers. Wiggle your toes. Awaken a little more with this next breath in. Stretch the arms overhead. Reach all the way through the legs, even into the toes. Then draw both knees deep into the chest. Give yourself a little squeeze. Embrace yourself here. Rock a little left, a little bit right, back and forth again. And then transition all the way onto your right or left side. Settle there a moment longer in the fetal position. Without any need to hurry, take your sweet time and push the earth away. Return all the way back up into seated. Sit up tall through the spine. And either bring your hands into a prayer or let them rest over your heart. Take this moment to allow the head to bow towards your heart space, a gesture of encouraging the mind to listen to the intuitiveness within. Notice how you feel in this moment. Has anything shifted? Has there been any kind of a change? Carry with you this deep connection to self, to the breath, to your intention. As you carry your practice off the mat and into the days ahead as you live through your yoga. Thank you so much for being here. Namaste.